In the interest of time and because some of our members have to leave, within the hour, I'm going to go ahead and call this, meeting to order while we wait for our chair to arrive. Madam Clerk, do you mind, calling, the roll?
Thank you, Vice Chair Burkett Garcia. With that, Member Aguirre.
Here.
Member Burkett Garcia.
Here.
Member Bush. Member Campbell.
Here.
Member Duncan.
Present.
Member Fitzgerald.
Present.
Member Gloria.
Here.
Member Gomez.
Here.
Member Coppola.
Here.
Member Lawson Reamer.
Here.
Member Sigler Granados.
Here.
Thank you. With that, we'll move ahead to item B1, which is the only item on our special meeting agenda. It is Tijuana River Valley Sewage Emergency Air Improvement Relief Effort, also known as AIRE, program update. I would note for the record that the submission period for requests to speak on this item have been closed. All public testimony will be heard at the conclusion of the staff presentation.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Would you mind providing the public testimony instructions?
All public testimony will be heard at the conclusion of the staff presentation. I'll turn the floor over to our Air Pollution Control Officer, Paula Forbes.
Thank you, Marlies, and thank you, Vice Chair Burkett Garcia and board members. In response to the board's directives from the August 14th governing board meeting, we're here today to provide an update on the specified action items related to the ongoing Tijuana River environmental crisis impacting South Bay communities. In this presentation, I will start off with a quick background section to provide a quick overview of SDAPCD's efforts to respond to this crisis, highlighting the early actions we took and how our role has since evolved. This background provides important context for the program updates and recommendations we'll be presenting today. We'll follow that with an in-depth discussion of our Air Improvement Relief Effort, or AIRE program, and finish with a short discussion of our ongoing monitoring for hydrogen sulfide in the air. Next slide, please. So the Tijuana River Valley environmental crisis has been a longstanding challenge over several decades. The conditions worsened significantly in the summer of 2024. Between July and September of last year, SDAPCD received over 1,800 odor complaints from communities across South Bay, prompting an immediate and coordinated response from our compliance team. As shown in this graph, the number of complaints has since decreased significantly, which coincides with infrastructure repairs and improvement to reduce flows in the Tijuana River. However, this decline does not mean that the work is done. Continued vigilance, community engagement, and long-term infrastructure solutions remain essential to addressing the root causes of the crisis. Shortly after odor complaints began to surge, SDAPCD identified that equipment operated by the International Boundary and Water Commission, or IBWC, and its contractor Veolia was not functioning appropriately. This malfunction contributed to increased flows of untreated wastewater into the Tijuana River, directly impacting nearby communities. We since issued 3 violations to both the IBWC and its contractor as a result of this. Next slide, please. To better understand community exposure, we deployed hydrogen sulfide monitoring equipment at 3 strategic locations: in San Isidro, in the community of Nestor, near the Saturn Boulevard hotspot, and at the Imperial Beach Civic Center. Hydrogen sulfide is measured in parts per billion, which reflects its concentration in the air. Even at low levels, it can cause odor nuisance, and at higher concentrations pose serious health risks. This chart here presents H2S concentrations reported at Berry Elementary since monitoring began in September of 2024. This site has consistently recorded the highest concentrations among our 3 monitoring locations. The red line indicates the 30 parts per billion level set by the state to prevent health impacts associated with a foul odor. We've observed that concentrations have been significantly lower in recent months, and while this trend is encouraging, it does not signal resolution of the crisis. Next slide, please. In partnership with the County of San Diego and in consultation with the California Department of Public Health, the U.S. Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry, and the U.S. EPA, a community hydrogen sulfide guidance document was developed to help interpret H2S levels. Based on this guidance, we have been issuing odor updates and advisories when the concentrations exceed 30 parts per billion. Next slide, please. And just to wrap up this section, this chart is based on data from the IBWC, which shows total annual transboundary flow volumes in the Tijuana River between 2019 and 2025. As shown, 2023 and 2024 saw a significant increase in dry season flows, which are represented by the dark blue bars. These flows consist of sewage and sometimes industrial contaminated water entering the U.S. during periods without rainfall. They're particularly concerning because they're not driven by storm events, but rather by ongoing infrastructure shortcomings or failures. Earlier this year, the EPA and the U.S. IBWC announced a 100-day commitment to fast-track a wastewater treatment plant expansion of 10 million gallons per day. On August 28, 2025, EPA announced the goal had been met and the plant's capacity was officially increased from 25 to 35 million gallons a day. Although the 2025 improvements have resulted in a decrease in both total and dry season flows so far, it's important to view this as a short-term improvement, not a long-term fix to the problem. Continued oversight, infrastructure investment, and maintenance, and binational coordination remain essential to the final resolution of this crisis. With that background, next slide, please. With that background, I'd like to turn to the governing board direction from the August board meeting. Next slide. Oh, we're there. At the last board meeting on August 14th, the board provided staff with the direction you see here on this slide. I won't read them to you, but the slide represents those actions we'll be focusing on for the remainder of this presentation. Those include investigations of modifications to the AIRE program, such as 1 purifier per room instead of 1 purifier per household, no longer requiring proof of address as part of the application process, purchasing all remaining air purifiers and filters within 60 days to store and distribute them locally, and expanding our outreach for the program. We will also touch on the recommendation to allocate existing resources to conduct air monitoring at the Saturn Boulevard location within the next 30 days. Next slide, please. The items on this slide reflect actions from the August meeting with report back dates to the governing board at a later time. We included them on the agenda today to allow for a fuller board discussion, but won't be addressing them in detail in today's presentation. Next slide, please. With that, I would like to turn it over to Deputy Director Mike Watt to address the AIRE program.
Thank you, Paul. Thanks, over there. Great. So in November 2024, the Air Pollution Control District Board approved appropriation of $2.7 million in interest earnings accrued from California Air Resources Board AB 617 Community Air Protection Program incentive funds to purchase air purifiers for households impacted by poor air quality stemming from the Tijuana River wastewater crisis, with the goal of distributing up to 10 purifiers. The governing board also provided direction to consult with CARB on purifier specifications that would be effective for hydrogen sulfide, as well as particulate matter. Provide purifiers within the affected area identified by the County of San Diego's pilot program, to prioritize distribution to those most vulnerable to potential health effects, including children, seniors, and those households most exposed to poor air quality from sewage flows, and to ensure that units were distributed to as many unique households as possible. Next slide, please. SDAPCD staff developed an online application portal for eligible households to request an air purifier and replacement, and began full implementation of the Tijuana River Valley Air Improvement Relief Effort, or AIRE program, in February 2025. The application portal is designed to collect basic information needed to verify program eligibility, household information, and address verification documentation. The system uses this information to assign priority score based on the criteria requested by the governing board, including presence of children or seniors in the home and proximity to sewage flows. In the initial months of the program, staff would review applications and batch them based on priority before placing orders. As time went on, the process shifted to placing orders for all priority scores to help ensure a larger number of purifiers could be distributed more quickly, as those with lower scores were waiting for longer periods of time. The program initially offered applicants the choice between home delivery and event pickup. Over 90% of applicants preferred to have the equipment shipped directly to their address, so we've transitioned the program to full direct home delivery. Given the size of the air purifier and the associated replacement filters and people's busy schedules, this approach provides a convenient delivery option. The application portal has also been refined and streamlined based on customer feedback to make it easier to use and minimize the inputs needed. Next slide, please. The process for distributing purifiers is outlined here. First, an application submitted through the online portal. The portal provides initial determination of address eligibility and if eligible, prompts the applicant to provide a few additional pieces of information, including name, contact information, household information, and upload a copy of address verification document. Staff have also provided assistance to applicants needing support over the phone as well as at in-person events. Staff then review the application to ensure all data is included, confirm the applicant name and address aligned with the submitted verification documentation, and confirm that duplicate applications have not been submitted. If additional information is needed to process the request, staff reach out to the applicant via their preferred contact method to let them know what's needed. Next, the approved applications are batched together with those received over the last 2 to 3 weeks and sent to the supplier for processing. Based on the number of units in each order, the supplier can take a few days to process the order, prepare the shipping labels, and coordinate delivery logistics from the East Coast to the final destination. It can take about 2 weeks for the units to ship from the East Coast and then arrive at household addresses. The purifier unit and replacement filters are shipped in separate packaging and could arrive at slightly different times. Notifications are sent to applicants throughout the process to keep them informed about the status of their request. Staff has worked with our supplier to identify enhancements to this process to help minimize the time between application, approval, and when the equipment arrives at the door, which I'll address later on the presentation. Next slide, please. To date, over 6,800 purifiers, each with the associated replacement filters, have been approved for distribution to households within eligible communities. This includes approximately 700 additional units that have been delivered since the last board meeting in August, and another 600 that are currently in transit and expected to be delivered next week. We also anticipate placing another order of approximately 300 purifiers this week. Earlier this week, staff distributed a feedback survey to households that received an air purifier between December 2024 and July 2025 to determine its effectiveness, overall satisfaction, and other factors. Preliminary findings indicate an overall high satisfaction rate with the air purifier, as well as the application process. Final results will be shared once the survey period concludes. Next slide, please. At the August meeting, the board asked staff to investigate establishing a standard of 1 purifier per room instead of the current limit of 1 purifier per household. Staff consulted with representatives from the California Department of Public Health for recommendations on the number of purifiers per household, and CDPH indicated there are many variables to consider, such as square footage, pollutant concentration, unit capacity, and purifier fan speed setting due to noise. They also stated that given the limited resources, priority should be placed on trying to get at least 1 purifier in as many homes as possible. Staff is meeting with CDPH again next week to get more information on their specific recommendations. Based on 2023 census data, we estimate there are approximately 40,000 households within the AIRE program eligible area. Approximately 2/3 of those households are within the Zone 1 area, closest to the sewage wells. To date, about 70% or 4,800 purifiers have been approved for distribution in Zone 1, and the remaining 30% or approximately 2,000 are households in Zone 2. Next slide, please. The table on this slide illustrates the number of purifiers that would be needed and the estimated equipment costs for various scenarios ranging from 1 to 4 purifiers per household. For example, approximately $10 million would be needed, or $7.5 million more than what's currently budgeted, to be able to provide 1 purifier to each household in the entire eligible area. On the higher end, as many as 160,000 purifiers would be needed at an estimated total cost of $40 million to provide 4 purifiers to each household within the eligible area. These cost estimates are based on current pricing in our contract with the supplier. Significant changes in volume may require a revision to the agreement and/or additional procurement efforts, which could impact pricing. Additionally, there have been some disruptions in supply resulting from tariff issues earlier this year. While our supplier has informed us they have worked through these issues and expect additional supply to be available within a few weeks, There's always the potential for future price and supply disruptions should tariff policy evolve going forward. The estimated costs shown here reflect only the equipment costs. Additional costs for program administration, outreach, storage, and distribution would also be considerations and will vary based on the scope and scale of ongoing efforts. Next slide, please. Staff was also asked to look into potentially no longer requiring proof of address as part of the application process. Currently, applicants are required to upload a copy of some form of documentation that verifies their name and address match that entered into the application form. This documentation can include things such as utility bills, rent or mortgage statements, cell phone bills, or car registrations. The verification documentation helps to ensure that the household is within the eligible program area, that the equipment is delivered to the actual household occupant, that 1 unit is delivered per household, and that any geographic requirements of CARB 8617 funds used to purchase the equipment can be met. This type of address verification is a standard requirement of other programs, and although not specifically required by CARB 8617 funding guidelines, some form of address verification is considered best practice. In response to customer feedback and concerns raised about uploading this type of documentation into our systems, staff has implemented various process improvements to streamline address verification. These include in-person registration events where staff can assist people with enrolling in the program and visually observe address verification documents so they do not need to be uploaded into the system. Additionally, we provide training to various partners who are assisting with enrollment so they can also visually certify address verification. We're also generally accepting of a wide range of documentation as long as the name and address match what's in the application, and have even had applicants send copies of their documentation to us in advance. Staff believes that continued implementation of the direct delivery model would allow for elimination of address verification documentation requirements, since we would at least have some level of certainty that the equipment is being shipped to an address within the eligible areas. That said, there could be some additional risks associated with removing this requirement, which include less surety on program eligibility, increased potential for use of false names or addresses, and challenges tracking the number of units per household. We do believe that some level of address verification would be needed for any in-person distribution events in order to confirm eligibility. Next slide, please. We were also asked to look into purchasing all remaining air purifiers within 60 days and to collaborate with community partners to store and distribute them locally. As noted previously, there have been some supply disruptions resulting from tariff issues earlier this year, and there's currently a limited supply of purifiers available from our vendor. There are approximately 500 units immediately available, and our vendor has indicated that an additional 3,000 needed to reach the initial goal of 10,000 are expected to be available in mid to late October, with additional units available beyond that. We've coordinated with the county's Department of Purchasing and Contracting to solicit quotes from other vendors who may be able to provide additional purifiers in the interim. Preliminary review of the responses received as of yesterday's submittal deadline indicate that pricing from these other vendors ranges from moderately to significantly higher than our current per unit costs, and that delivery logistics and timelines may present additional challenges. Staff estimates that approximately 3,500 square feet of space would be needed to store the purifiers locally. Some of our partners have indicated a willingness to provide limited space on a temporary basis to store units, likely not enough to meet this need efficiently. We estimate the cost to rent this amount of warehouse space would be approximately $6,000 per month. Additional costs associated with local distribution would also likely be incurred and could vary depending on the approach, such as distribution events, coordinating home delivery locally, things of that nature. Next slide, please. As I mentioned previously, staff has worked with our supplier to identify opportunities to enhance the current distribution model in an effort to minimize the delivery time to households. We've already started to place smaller batch orders more frequently to reduce the time between application approval and ordering. Our supplier has also offered to store the remaining approximately 3,000 units needed to reach the initial goal of 10,000 at their warehouse in Fresno at no cost through the end of the year, once they arrive from overseas in October, and then ship them directly to homes from there as opposed to coming from the East Coast as they currently. We've also indicated, they have also indicated the ability to scale this up as needed beyond the initial 10,000 units if desired, and could maintain a rolling stock of units in Fresno to support faster local delivery. We estimate that this will reduce delivery time by as much as 50% from the time that the application is approved to when the equipment arrives at the delivery address at no additional cost. Next slide, please. SDAPCD has coordinated with community-based organizations and other stakeholders, including school districts, community groups, health clinics, elected officials, and local government agencies to conduct outreach related to this program. Staff has also conducted door-to-door outreach in communities where program participation has been low and has a regular presence at the Imperial Beach Library to help support in-person registration. Staff is also working with our partners at the County of San Diego, Meals on Wheels, and various senior living facilities, apartment complexes, libraries, and community centers to conduct in-person registration for the program. Try to help bridge the digital divide for those who may not have ready access to the online registration portal. Outreach via social media, community events, schools, and South Bay health providers is also ongoing. Additionally, our partners at the County of San Diego are also attending community events and maintaining a regular presence at trusted community establishments such as employment centers, markets, and YMCAs to promote the program and support registration. On August 26th, the County of San Diego sent over 10,000 messages to community members to inform them about the free air purifier program through the Alert San Diego system. In response, we received about 500 additional applications within a few days of that. Next slide, please. To further expand outreach efforts, staff has explored sending a targeted mailer to eligible households that have not yet submitted a program application, as well as running recurring social media advertisements to promote the program. Also, a media toolkit has been developed to help facilitate dissemination of program information with stakeholders and partners. Pending the response to the district mailer, staff will also continue to work with various stakeholders and seek new strategic opportunities to ensure all eligible households are informed of the program, its benefits, and the enrollment process. Implementation of these efforts is currently on hold due to supplier limitations noted previously, as only a small quantity of purifiers are immediately available, with the remainder expected by mid to late October. Once additional inventory becomes available, the mailer, social media advertisements, and media toolkit will serve as critical tools to help ensure broad and digital program awareness. While volunteer involvement is valuable, it's important to note that successful outreach, especially in historically underserved communities, requires active participation of community-based organizations with deep community trust. Appropriate compensation for the costs of staffing, materials, translation, and outreach logistics is an important consideration when soliciting support from these community partners and could be an added cost which is not included in the current budget. In consideration of staff resources and staff capacity, this outreach model is sustainable for a limited time frame. Expanded or long-term program efforts would require further assessment of available resources and/or consideration of outsourcing. Next slide, please. In August, the board also asked staff to explore options for utilizing any remaining AIRE program funds to purchase air purifiers for public schools and daycares within the AIRE program eligibility. There are some minor added complexities associated with utilizing CARB AB 617 funds for air purifiers at schools and daycares that don't apply to residential programs, including inspection of the equipment to verify installation, as well as annual reporting on equipment. Staff is currently working on finalizing the grant agreements for air purifiers at school districts who previously applied through our Clean Air for All project solicitation. We are working on resolving issues related to the reimbursement process typically used in this program, where project costs would be incurred by the school district upfront, and then SDAPCD provides reimbursement for those costs once the equipment has been purchased and installed. In response to feedback from school districts that this reimbursement approach would create a financial hardship, we are developing a voucher-based process to be able to pay the vendor directly once the equipment is in place at the school districts. Once we have the voucher process and agreements in place with these districts, we will solicit applications from the remaining school districts with campuses located within the AIRE program eligible area. Several home-based daycares are already participating in the AIRE program, and many have received purifiers or have them on the way. Our partners at County Public Health Services conducted initial outreach to these home-based daycares, and we plan to continue additional outreach to those who have yet to apply. A number of daycares also operate at public school campuses in shared facilities and may be part of the pending grant awards to school districts. Staff is coordinating with the school districts to identify daycares which may share space at schools to determine if those spaces will be equipped with purifiers as part of this program. For the remaining daycares that are not based out of a home or school, staff envisions a streamlined process similar to the AIRE program, where these facilities could provide the minimum information needed to meet CARB funding requirements, and the program would provide air purifiers suitable for the daycare setting. Staff plans to reach out directly to these facilities to collect the information and work towards fulfilling their requests. Next slide. Our goal is to complete the distribution of 10,000 air purifiers by December of 2025. To achieve that goal, our recommended next steps are to continue distribution of the approximately 3,000 remaining units using the streamlined home delivery approach discussed previously. We would purchase the remaining units and coordinate storage and distribution of those units from the Fresno warehouse as soon as they are available in October, or sooner if possible. Staff would continue application review and submit more frequent orders to reduce the time from application approval to shipment. And in order to maximize the reach of the currently available funding, we recommend maintaining the standard of 1 unit per household. We also plan to send out the direct mailer to all remaining eligible residential addresses in October with information about the program and how to apply, as well as scheduling corresponding in-person registration events to help support enrollment. We will provide a status update on these efforts to the board at the October 9th meeting. And pending feedback from today's discussion, staff will provide a plan on potential program expansion at the December 11th board meeting. Next slide, please. I'll now pass it to my colleague Domingo Guzillo to discuss our monitoring.
Thank you, Mike. To address air monitoring needs related to hydrogen sulfide from the Tijuana River, SDAPCD conducted an assessment of potential sites to measure hydrogen sulfide concentrations that could impact the surrounding community. Our assessment included consultations with the community through our International Border Community Steering Committee, looking at our complaint data at the time, consulting with the South Coast Air Quality Management District, who deployed resources to help us track hydrogen sulfide in the community and identify a hotspot, and consulting with UCSD researchers who have been conducting air monitoring in the area and pointed out a hotspot for hydrogen sulfide release at Saturn Boulevard. As a result, SDAPCD assessed the area for a feasible site to deploy monitoring equipment near the Saturn Boulevard hotspot. The site has to meet several requirements, including access to electricity, access to vehicles and personnel to conduct equipment calibrations and maintenance, be a secure location to host the equipment 24/7 without the risk of theft or tampering, and be close enough to the hotspot and the community to properly assess potential concentrations community members might be experiencing from the hotspot. The actual location of the Saturn Boulevard hotspot did not meet these requirements, so we had to explore other options in the surrounding area. Our current site at Berry Elementary School meets the necessary requirements for our hotspot site. This site is located half a mile north of the Saturn Boulevard hotspot and across the street from where the UCSD research team sited their monitoring trailer. Our monitoring site at Berry Elementary is close enough to the hotspot to allow us to measure hydrogen sulfide concentrations in the community that is impacted by the hotspot. We are currently exploring options to relocate this site to a more permanent location that would also allow us to deploy additional equipment if needed and host research institutions to collaborate. SDAPCD staff is preparing to present more details on this option during the October 9th board meeting. SDAPCD has been in communication with the IBWC and partner agencies regarding a pilot study commissioned by IBWC that would use nanobubble ozone technology to clean the water in the Tijuana River. At this moment, there is no clear indication if the pilot will take place. We will learn more in the coming days and report to the board. Next slide, please. I would now like to pass that over to our APCO, Paula Forbes.
And so I just want to close out our presentation by reaffirming SDAPCD's ongoing commitments to do what it can to address this crisis. And so we talked a lot at the beginning of the presentation about the efforts that we've been pursuing. We're going to continue to do that, responding to community complaints, monitoring hydrogen sulfide, issuing odor updates and advisories, and doing what we can to expedite our delivery of purifiers into households in the area. And I just want to highlight that collaboration is key to all of these efforts and is going to be needed to permanently address the source of this crisis. At its core, this is a cross-border pollution issue, and the responsibility for infrastructure and long-term remediation rests with the federal government. We are going to continue to work with our local, state, and federal partners to ensure that local communities remain informed about our actions to provide relief and hasten our distribution of the purifiers for which we have current funding. Further collaboration is going to be especially important on all of these efforts, and especially if the AIRE program is significantly expanded beyond its scope and scale. And so with that, that concludes our presentation. We are happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that presentation. Madam Clerk, are there any members of the public that wish to address the board on this item?
Thank you, Vice Chair Garcia. We have 4 members of the public wishing to address the board. We'll begin with those members of the public that are here in the board chamber. We'll start with Carita Javier. You'll have 3 minutes to address the board. Please begin by stating your name for the record. And you can use the timer that will be on the screen to self-regulate your time.
Good afternoon. I am Rita Javier, victim of toxicity from next door ceramics manufacturing and ceramics kiln, constructed, and operated since 1984 in a community dedicated residential zone. We are here to learn and be educated to know, to solve crises such as this. We copy the thinkers' solutions from our consistent attendance from San Diego City Council meeting, country, standard, and APCD water
Ms.
authority.
Javier, excuse me, we need to limit the topic to our agenda items for today.
Yes, ma'am. Please let her finish. So it would reconcile with what you are asking.
Mr. Javier, this is her time right now. Thank you.
Subject on hand or hard is one of the many variable solutions, and our role as public servants is the hit and golf ball delivery of other good we call arrestee. Availability of resource, responsive and answer, adequacy, simple, timely, efficiently, effectively. My husband Rob's solution, and please listen to the birds, animals, the floor, and fauna. Here's so much. County of San Diego Environmental Health and Quality Advisory Board meeting agenda. Wednesday, September 17, 2025, 8:30 a.m. to 10 a.m. 5530 Overland. Second floor, conference room 241, 242, San Diego, California, 92105. Virtual participation is only on members of the public and board.
Thank you. Your time is concluded.
Can I?
Mr. Javier, please approach the podium and begin by stating your name for the record.
Oh, it's here. I am Cesar Javier. Once upon a time volunteered here to be a member, even just a janitor. But Councilor Rivera, mayor, a citizen, he barred my volunteerism. This is the situation in Tijuana River Valley. That's the higher elevation, and the downstream is here towards the delta, which is now occupied by the urban Imperial Beach City. Please listen, Citizen Aguirre, and the Queen of Portalet and toilets representing our city of San Diego. Did you cite the city? It smells urine, polluting the same thing as we are trying to solve here. That's the source of pollution. Water, land, coastal, sea pollution. Now, who are the lead agencies supposed to attend to these issues now going on? Come on. Oh, Mayor Gloria, of course. Mayor, District 8 Councilor, I will not pinpoint, but I'm going to show you the solution. We need clean water. On the entire geography infected, we bring pump, load it into the tankers which the city has just bought. Help the agency. Suck it and bring it to the treatment plant. For the land, dig. Load it in the truck, place it in the landfill. Where is our landfill? Get ready. We have one at Santima. I know why you are here. What next? Come on, keep on watering, Cesar. Watering, keep on. And then we locate a new clean land and refill it. We call it soil amendment in agriculture. Simple. And you're talking something beyond the bullseye. I might be cited. I have to lower my decibel. My classmates, we learn a lot from the standard of standard solution. You are not there, Mayor, because you are not qualified. Who else? Oh, Marcos Bush. We asked the national city local government, please don't let loose the supreme kind of animal because he is not qualified. Thank you. You see, the voice of man, the voice of the insect, the voice of the
Your time
plant.
is concluded.
Thank you.
That concludes public testimony for those that are in the room. We will now call our speakers that are virtual. Our first speaker is Truth. You have 3 minutes to address the board. Please begin by stating your name for the record.
Hey there, Truth. It seems like some career politicians want to expedite ending NORA's air purifier program by giving them out to anyone who signs up without any verification or accountability of where they live or how many they've gotten. I'm glad staff sees how crazy corrupt that idea is. Toilet queens living in La Mesa should not have access to these purifiers. No using TDS as an excuse to have these valuable machines dumped in unaffected communities to fraudulently make it look like the program was successful. Strike the 100% distribution goal. It should be a 100% outreach goal by December. APCD should reach out to local events like concerts at parks and farmers markets to inform the communities of the program. Using a different brand of purifier may breed skepticism if it doesn't have exactly the same specs. Ending direct delivery would probably save tax dollars if local cities were offering local pickup from their local storage centers. I support expediting shipments to homes via more frequent purchases. I support finishing the purchase of the rest of the purifiers within financial feasibility. My idea for leftover purifiers Advocate for a legislative fix to give some to libraries, and save the rest for future Mexico sewage provided to Imperial Beach via the IBWC's dumping millions more gallons of Mexico's waste into our ocean outfall as a faux EPA solution. Excluding any future emergencies, any further investment should be funded via state or federal grants. Let those jurisdictions put their money where their big mouths are. For Rec 7, expanding monitoring, yes. The IB Civic Center air monitors don't seem to be working. It also looks like there's a monitor in the Tijuana estuary with results unreported. The importance of air monitors. On September 3rd at 5 a.m., Mexico's favorite time of day, hydrogen sulfide levels spiked to 150 parts per billion. July 9th spiked to 304 parts per billion. All high levels fall under APCD's orange range, which lacks details on the real health impacts, which I consider negligence. Hydrogen sulfide poisoning effects of eye irritation, bronchial constriction, headache, dizziness, fatigue, loss of smell, increased blood lactate, decreased skeletal muscle citrate synthase, decreased oxygen, and respiratory distress should not be called odor advisories, but health advisories. There should be city, county, SANDAG, state, and federal coordination at the 50 parts per billion point. Rec 8, what jurisdiction does APCD have over IBWC's experimental testing at Saturn Boulevard? Potential testing. This seems like redirecting tax dollars to justify Paloma's items 17 and 18 at Tuesday's Board of Supervisors meeting. APCD should allow IBWC to do their test and simply ask for a presentation of the results. Is it fair APCD has to spend tax dollars on air purifiers? No. But Imperial Beach and Coronado, having had to spend multiple decades of time, money, and energy on this topic, isn't fair either. I just wanted to say that as a reminder for those who may forget. Thank you. Concludes my comments.
Thank you. Our last speaker is Kyle Hasella. You have 3 minutes to address the board. Please begin by stating your name for the record. It doesn't look like Kyle is there, so that concludes public testimony on this item.
Thank you. Are there any comments from our colleagues? Member AIRE?
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. I want to start by thanking Paula and the team for all of your work on this and your openness to continuous discussions with me and my team. I really appreciate the work. I also want to just briefly take this opportunity to thank Mayor Gloria, the City of San Diego, and the City of Imperial Beach for the partnership on the Aloha San Diego. As we saw, that resulted in a significant increase in filters delivered in the span of days. I think I wrote down, you guys quantified 500, I believe. It's like a 300% increase. So very exciting to see that. I have a few comments, if may, before we go to the rest of the board. I'd love to hear everybody else's thoughts. But I wanted to comment on the number of purifiers per household, because that is one of the areas that I'm most concerned with. I know that resources are limited, and we started to have that discussion in our last meeting, and I'm very aware of that. But I just want to reiterate the significant need that we have in the community that are going to be infected. We do know that one air purifier in one living space is not enough, especially for families who reside in the affected areas, who are primarily working families, low-income families. We have a lot of households that have multi-generational families and living under one roof, and one single filter is not enough. So I would like to propose that we increase the number and we explore financial ways to fund that. Obviously, we're not going to depend entirely on this agency. I want to make sure that other agencies and philanthropy find sources to sustain this program. I think the biggest cost will be upfront, because we know that these units can have the filters themselves replaced. So the machine cost is a little bit higher in the beginning. That is one thing. And then I wanted to also comment on the need and requirement for a proof of address. I mean, obviously it makes sense. We want to make sure we minimize any potential fraudulent practices. So we want to make sure that at least in the ones that we do deliver in person, we ask for that proof of residency. I think that putting the address in the application itself, that's our fail-safe mechanism, right? Because if you're putting your address, you'll automatically know that you're living in the affected area. If you live in, or you put mama, you know, or no, Claremont. If you live in Claremont, right, you're not gonna, the air filter shipped to Claremont will know immediately you're outside of that area. And then, with regard to the rollout of what our remaining filters are, you know, the whole purpose of that was that it was taking too long, right? That's what I was hearing constantly from community. So, this idea of storing some in Fresno, I think is really great. It seems like that's the shipping time in half. I would still propose that we, bring immediately at least a smaller percentage, like 25% or something like that, so that we could immediately roll those out, especially for those who have challenges making the application online. Obviously, the digital divide is a big concern. You know, and even though those who are able to access the program online have 90% satisfaction rate, we're not accounting for those who can't even access the program online, that have the barriers of how to use a computer, language barriers or other concerns. So that would be my third proposal. And I just wanted to add that I have been in conversations with our county team as well, with county leadership, in fact, about seeing if we could utilize storage space in our Kearney Mesa facility for up to 800 purifiers, and there is an ability to explore that, including potentially using our county-owned box trucks to help in that delivery. So I'm not committing to anything at this point, obviously, but we've started those conversations that I'm very excited about. And obviously, the commitment from my office to be heavily involved in assisting the coordination with community partners, CDOs, health clinics, local schools, of course, so that we can get that ball rolling as fast as possible. And so just to wrap it back up, coming back to the most important conversation, I think, is the increasing the number of filters per household and the cost. I think that at least expanding the program in 2026 to 40,000 filters is an absolute baseline, in my opinion, so that we have enough filters per household, per person, to be able to endure the noxious and toxic conditions that result from the air pollution. And I'll just wrap up with, before I pass on to my colleagues, I do want to acknowledge the efforts of the administration to expedite the expansion from 25 million gallons to 35 million gallons per day at the treatment plant. That's a significant effort that needs to be recognized and acknowledged. I will just add that, unfortunately, the treatment plant, as we know, is not treating the main source of pollution to us, which is the river itself. And as Paula mentioned, that is the most concerning area because it carries industrial waste, concentrated industrial waste and wastewater. And I'll just add that this week, very grateful to my colleague, the chair of the board, and the rest of the board of supervisors, who unanimously approved beginning the process to fund a feasibility study to explore the removal of the toxic hotspot, which is an infrastructure fix that is within our capacity, that, as the scientists have told us, has the potential to significantly reduce the amount of emissions that are coming out there. Now, pause there.
Thank you, Member Gloria.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. And I want to start by expressing my appreciation to Supervisor AIRE for her leadership on this issue. While this district has been working on this issue prior to her arrival, obviously the special meeting, I think, is indicative of the urgency both you and this board want to see on this issue. And glad that we can be here with some, I think, good follow-up information from our last meeting, as well as potential for direction to set to take specific actions. And so I was encouraged by a lot of what my colleague from the county board had to say. I want to ask the question. I was trying to follow a great staff presentation and appreciate it. Point by point follow-up on the items that we discussed last time. With regard to sharing addresses and verifying eligibility, forgive me if I missed it. Do we have a number of how many folks have been found ineligible or have been unable to provide an address or meet the address requirements?
So the way the process is set up is the first check is the system checks to see if you're in the eligible area. If you're not in that area, it sends you to like a waiting list. Say, hey, if we find additional funding to expand the program at a later date, we could do that. Then the next step is we evaluate the documentation that's submitted. And at times we found situations where they don't align. And so we're not 100% certain that the person who submitted the application is the one who is actually going to be living at that address. I would say, I'm looking at staff, 10% or so, where we have these issues challenging, whether or not the address verification aligns with the address in the application. We've also had certain situations where, to be expected, somebody may have applied at an address previously, maybe moved to a different residence. Now there's a new residence in that household that wants to apply for the program. And so we've got to work through some of those hurdles where that address verification documentation is helpful. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
I think it does. I mean, I definitely appreciate the complexities of life and that, we're dealing with a fairly large operation, right? We distributed 6,800 of these air purifiers to date. Taking that 10% number, we're talking roughly 600, 700 folks who may have fallen into this sort of variables for whatever reason. Maybe some of those get resolved, some get kicked to the wait list, some are found to be maybe gaining the system. I don't think you
Only a small percentage of those that are falsely provided.
And obviously that proves out that it's a small minority, but we do, because we have limited resources, want to make sure that we're prioritizing the people that actually need. And so it sounds like there's a desire and already some effort made to try and make this as easy as possible. It's for those who are in the qualifying area to qualify for this. Yeah, 10%, well, 10% is all in, right? It's, I would want to know more about potential fraudulent claims to understand how much latitude we have. I hate that this is a part of society, but people do game the system, and we have to be jealous guardians of taxpayer resources. And I think that's exactly what the supervisor is trying to make with the request of just trying to take those folks who are struggling for digital divide reasons or whatever to make sure that that's not the barrier. Clearly, we do not want these resources, these finite resources, going to anyone outside the affected zone who are not eligible. The point that supervisor was making that did capture my attention, and I agree would be interested in seeing, is to the extent that like an accessory dwelling unit, if you have a secondary unit on the property, does that address kick somebody out because you already have a person in the front house ask for it? Obviously, that's an instance where I think we could intelligently understand that that's different and that parcel probably deserves 2 units at a minimum, if not more. So there's a lot of variation, writ large, it's 1 per household currently, but recognizing multi-generational families, multi-family complexes, et cetera. I want to make sure that we're not disadvantaging somebody because they don't simply live in a single family home and that we're taking advantage, recognizing there are a lot of housing types in that part of our community. With regard to the potential, I realize some rough numbers, but we're talking about tens of millions to hit a threshold of 1 per room. And so I see funding of that magnitude. I think it's difficult to do. I think we should set a goal of trying to help everyone who's in the eligible area. And then once we've established that, or everyone in the eligible area who wants help, if we've helped that, they should then, by all means, make sure that these are sitting in a warehouse that is also a waste of taxpayer resources. Surely should be distributed. Seems to me from the staff presentation, you've been endeavoring to find ways to make this easier. Advanced buying, excellent suggestion, should do it, absolutely. I heard the comments about supply chain, tariff, et cetera. Such as our luck to serve at a time with these kinds of challenges. But I would implore staff to continue to find ways to work around any of those things that may not be exactly in our control, but we can help with them to our advantage. I think with regard to the recommendations, items 3 through 8 are all guesses, and I would want to endeavor to do that. With regard to increasing the room standard, or I guess it's increasing the number that per household. I know Supervisor Geary's on this too. I don't want to spend more on addressing the symptoms. I'd like to address more on solving the problem. And I recognize people are hurting today. But if we were in receipt of tens of millions of dollars, I would hope that we could do it for like the capital improvement on Saturn Boulevard to reduce the hotspot, do things of that nature. But my suspicion is, particularly for this board, which focuses on air quality, that we'll make every effort to find philanthropic grant funding, other resources, look into couch cushions at your office and figure out some way to put allowable resources in this fund to provide relief to those folks in the south part of our county. Reminder to my colleagues, this organization once was famous for passing out electric lawnmowers to folks. That does not seem nearly as urgent as this need for clean air for people in such an enormous part of our community. So when I wrote the state legislation to reform this board, it was with this notion that we would find ourselves concerned with communities of concern, with neighborhoods even long overlooked, with people with urgent health air quality issues. The fact that we're maybe, I'm sure there's some folks with lawns who are probably upset about having a lawnmower, but I would say to them that our people in South San Diego absolutely deserve access to clean air. Until we can get the comprehensive, long-term and permanent fix in place, we should do everything we can to relieve those folks. This group has been doing it, and again, kudos to the Air Board for what you've done over the last year to make this happen. I would feel better if we had all 10,000 out. I'm sure you feel that same way. Hence the nature of this conversation. What I've heard today is a desire to innovate, to find continuous process improvements, to be willing to modify rules in the faith, using common sense logic of, help as many people as we possibly can, and keep us abreast of how you're doing, knowing that all of us can do something. Supervisor Aguirre is doing work along with Chairwoman or Chair Lawson Niemer. I know that Councilmember Campbell and I, through the installation of signage in the affected zone, utilization of the city fire station to our monitoring center. I know that our branch library in the area would be willing to host distribution events. I'm sure we can find other ways the city could participate. And of course, we're working with Supervisor Geary on Saturn Boulevard and the desire to find improvement to maybe land, maybe owns the land in question, but we're setting that ownership aside to try and find some sort of solution to provide relief. So forgive the long nature of the comments, and also forgive me for having to excuse myself. I need to provide a keynote speech at a 9/11 memorial today. But I want to be here because this is an urgent issue. I want to back up Supervisor Geary and her leadership on this issue. And I ask for this board and the staff's continued support for relief for these folks in South San Diego who absolutely need this. Good job again, 7,000 air purifiers in the community. I don't think anyone would have thought 2 years ago this organization was capable of doing that. You've done it. Kudos. Let's keep it going. Let's continue to find ways to make sure that we're providing as much relief as we can. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair, for the chance to meet this month.
Member Gomez?
Yeah, thank you. And I apologize for not being here last meeting. So this is the second engagement that I have in this particular issue. So a couple of questions. One is in relation to, it caught my attention, very elementary, in the fact that we have a monitor there, and that's great that we're gathering data. I'm just wondering, what is the filtration system? What does it look like at the actual school?
I'm not aware of the actual filtration system at a school.
Okay.
They are one of the South Bay Unified School District is one of the districts that we're working with on providing purifiers for classrooms in those schools. I do know that as part of COVID response several years ago, many schools got upgraded HVAC systems, but more for particulate matter, not necessarily things that can address odors of this type. I have also been aware through conversations with our supplier that, built-in HVAC systems are challenging to try to incorporate the carbon filtration, things like that you need for addressing, hydrogen sulfide and those sorts of gases, which is why the standalone filters are a better option for those particular types of facilities. So I guess in short, we are working with South Bay Unified School District, of which Berry Elementary is one of their schools, on this process to get filtration systems in their classroom.
Yeah, I would be interested in perhaps next time we have this conversation to get a fuller understanding of what the schools look like in terms of filtration, just because kids spend quite many hours in them. I know that infrastructure is a bit older as well in schools. That would be an interesting analysis if it can be done. I think to me, the big question is funding. I think that's like the grappling question of the day, right? Not opposed of the efforts and wanting to do this, but I know that, you know, the current organization that I work with, Casa Familia, did a minor distribution thanks to EPA. Before that grant got it. We were able to distribute some filters, but it also came with the incentive to pay the electric bill, right? And electricity here is not cheap in our region. So I think remember Gary mentioned the many device that Southway has, right? And this is a working class communities. So I'm also mindful of the electricity. So I think part of this, and I don't want to throw the bill, but it should be part of the discussion that I know when we did the EHC pilot as well, it included incentives. So I just want us to also incorporate that as we move forward. And like I said, I'm very mindful of the funding, and I know that there isn't much funding. Just talked about it last a couple months of the budget. So I'm just wondering, and I don't think and I don't know what the plan is to identify funding. Who's leading that conversation? Is it APCD? Is it the county? Who's managing that? It's actually, I don't know. Is it APCD? Is that your belief, or just wondering, because I think that's going to lead to solutions.
So that was part of the motion for us to, from August, for us to report back in December as to different federal and state grant opportunities. I know the county is also looking at other options as well. So I don't know that we're necessarily in the lead, but certainly collaborating with other partners to do that. Leave it to member Gibb.
Go ahead.
Thank you to the chair. But in reality, the lead of the program is us, right? APCD. And the direction was to bring back potential funding opportunities, including philanthropic, local, state, federal sources. Obviously, from the county, we are already looking internally and having to support the program, enhance the program, expand the program, which is really the ultimate need that we have. So yes, it's a collaboration. We obviously have an agreement that the county signed with APCD when this program first was launched to put the management of the program under APCD. But those are ongoing conversations. I just want to take the quick opportunity to acknowledge your concern about the electricity. I think there's a real opportunity there to talk to our legislative delegation about next year, potentially exploring legislation for tax credits, maybe around the affected areas regarding.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Carla. So I think one thing that came to mind, I don't remember, I know Senator Padilla, State Senator Padilla, I don't know if it was in relation to this. He was carrying legislation to allocate a percentage of border crossing, right? Was it for the Tijuana?
It died.
That it died. I encourage us to continue to not let it die. Because I'm thinking that is the venue for funding, right? And to me, filters are Band-Aid, right? That's not the ultimate solution. So I would want to really elevate this in terms of funding, if we can identify funding, to have it be more than just filters, right? Because there's a lot that I can lay out in terms of solutions, but I just feel like funding really is the obstacle here. And it's beyond, I mean, the dollar amount is not a small amount here just for purifiers, but it's just, I just feel like there needs to be a bigger conversation on that. And it really does require a collective roundtable to really explore and push if the DL wants to do it, like, let's bring it back, bring it off. So it's just something to consider.
Thank you. Before I let you speak, Member Lawson Remer, I just wanted to make one comment regarding all of this. Since most of the people here were not, except for Georgette and I, were not at the meeting last September, I do want to just remind the board and the community that a year ago, when this was addressed in September, we were told by the county and the Department of Public Health at our meeting over in Kearney Mesa that it was safe. And so the board still was concerned about the odor, and we directed APCD to start looking into monitoring and filtration systems. And I just want to applaud the work that was done in a year. It wasn't that we were just delegated to do this, but staff, under the direction of the board, stepped up and started monitoring and found a way to purchase purifiers and distribute purifiers. And I'm very proud of the work you guys have done in the last 12 months. Member Lawson Remer.
Thank you. Just a couple of comments and a question. So first question, thank you. It's incredibly helpful. It's been really good work, and I really appreciate my colleagues' leadership leading the fight on this issue and bringing this and pushing it forward. I just wondered, what's the lifespan of the air purifiers? Because those are static numbers.
I don't know. I may have to follow up on the lifespan of purifier itself, but I know with the program we're providing replacement air purifiers, or excuse me, replacement filtration systems, to go into the air purifier that should last. It varies a little bit depending on household and level of pollutants and how often they use them and what setting they use them on. So there's a bunch of variables, but what we've heard is anywhere from 8 to 12 months for each replacement filter. And most participants are getting at least 1 to 2 replacement filters. So we expect that to be able to last for 2 years. Beyond that, I would need to do a little bit more research with our supplier to see how long the actual unit lasts, and then what additional costs would be associated with buying filters.
That would be very helpful, because I think there's a little bit of a sticker shock, right? Like $40 million is a lot, but if these air purifiers are lasting for quite a long time and amortize it over say they lasted for 20 years, that's really $2 million a year. That, I mean, of course, it's 40 million up front, but I just think as we think about the investment we're making in our community and the long-term health benefits, it's really important to acknowledge that these are long-term health and benefits. It's not just one-time expenditure and one-time benefits. So I would be helpful, I think, to just have the finances on that.
Sure.
Yeah. I think I want to say, I have a 2:30 meeting, so I have about 2 more minutes here, but I'm just really grateful of the work here and, really supportive of it moving forward. I think we all acknowledge the funding is an issue, but I'm committed to continuing to fight that fight and continue for the resources that we need. And I want to just voice my support for this initiative. So I'll stay as long as I can. Texting, it's delayed.
Thank you. Member Stickler Granados.
I just have to echo what everyone said. It's been impressive. I was at that September meeting last year, if y'all remember. Somebody giving my 2 minutes or 1 minute that I had after having been out in the field sampling for a couple of days in emergency response. And I was the one that I think there was a newspaper article that came out about me getting sick, and I was really sick and have stayed sick ever since. And so I wanted to say that I did a little bit of nerdy math last night about the air filters program. So I had to think a lot about that, because I'm going to talk about public health for a moment, if you guys don't mind, because I'm not going to think about the dollar amounts right now, because I'm really don't feel like I can put a price on public health. And being in the community myself over and over and over again, doing the sampling at the hotspot, going door to door, visiting with community members, the stories I heard from them, mental health issues, thinking that they were having anxiety, but it was really just having to both I filled up in their home. I was going in the middle of the afternoon and this was not even during the peak times. And the house was just reeked of what I would call sewage smell. And they didn't even realize it. Of course, you know, I'm not gonna say anything to them, but these homes are building up these gases and it's not just hydrogen sulfide. So I know we just put out a paper in Science that just came out talking about hydrogen sulfide. But at the same time, we were doing that monitoring, we we're also driving around with sniffer trucks and measuring VOCs and all of the things that you can't smell. And I've never seen so many chemicals rising up on these monitors. And I have in my entire life. And so did the researchers from UT Austin. And so I wanted to state that there's things that we smell, which is hydrogen sulfide, and that's easier to monitor, less expensive to monitor. And there's things that we can't smell. And I think those publications are going to be coming out, excuse me, soon enough to showing all the VOCs and the different chemicals that we're also measuring in the air. And so this is why I think we call this relief effort. And I agree, it is a Band-Aid, totally a Band-Aid, but people are getting sick right now. And I think that that's the issue. So I'm going to go back to what I said. I did a little nerdy math last night, thinking, why do we need 4 per house? And I had to go back to my air quality class days and think about that. And in a bedroom, we spend 8 hours at night, hopefully. Sleeping, we should at least 8 hours. And according to the numbers, we need at least 5 full circulations of air in that time period while we're sleeping. And I looked at the specs on the filters, and we can definitely get to that with 1 filter in the room at night. But if it were in the living room, it wouldn't work at all in the bedrooms, period, the end. Even if you put it in the hallway and you had 3 bedrooms and left all the doors open, you wouldn't even get a half of an air circulation. And so after thinking about this a little bit more and knowing that these hydrogen sulfide spikes are happening in the evenings and at night, middle of the night to be exact, over and over and over again, even right now, as we're seeing spikes, right? We're seeing them at night. I think it's important that we have them in every bedroom. And I think I said the last meeting, I'm like, I wouldn't expect grandma to sleep on the couch. Everybody's going to be in the couch, you know, in the living room sleeping with all the kids. But as much as we can, we need to distribute what we have and really think about how we can support people right now at this time. So if anybody ever wants to go over the calculations, I had to go through them all last night, and you want me to go through the calculations?
I'll make sure to
I believe you.
Okay. I actually have an air purifier cheat sheet, so I can look at the formulas, like, because it's a nerdy formula. But 1 in the living room and 1 in each bedroom. It also recommends 1 in the kitchen dining area, but at a minimum, the main living space and the bedrooms where people are sleeping at night. So that's sort of my look at, again, people are suffering right now. The headaches are the part that's kind of concerning me the most. 80% of our respondents so far are reporting monthly, daily headaches. And this is a cohort of about 400 people that are reporting this on a monthly basis, that they're having headaches more than 5 times a week. So that's affecting their quality of life. And most of them are waking up in the mornings with these headaches. So, even if the H2S on the monitors looks low, it doesn't mean that people aren't getting exposed to other things. And so what we don't know is really what's going on, but the numbers from these public health surveys, including the ones done by the county and the ones done by the ACES survey, all of those are saying the exact same things. So I think that this relief effort immediately is great. And I also, again, I can't even commend you any more than I already can of how great this has been, just to see that so many filters get out. So I agree with the solutions putting forward of local storage. I spoke with multiple community groups who are very willing to jump up and help, and I've been in conversations with them as well. They want the ones that we have out faster. So we have, I think I would like to propose that we have a distribution plan in place for the different scenarios if we do talk about having more than 1 filter per household. And then I guess just lastly, I wanted to address also the electricity issue. I just a quick calculation. And it's about 25 cents a day to run 3 of these filters per night for 8 hours. So it adds up to about $10 a day if they were only running them at low to moderate speed for 8 hours, 3 of them. So if you can, that's just a rough back of the envelope calculation. So not crazy expensive, but also for some families that might be a cost. And so consider that. And also, because of the high levels of VOCs and gases, these filters get saturated quicker. And so during peak events, they're going to have to run them higher. And so there's a lot of, differences in how and when. It really depends on the house, the size, the shape, the symptoms, the things that are going on. So just keeping all of those things in consideration. I'm also full support of the hotspot remediation. And then lastly, with the hydrogen sulfide monitor at AIRE Elementary, I have some thoughts on that. Where it's at right now is capturing people are actually breathing in the community, having spot checks at the hotspot would be great, just to see if whatever baseline methods, whatever alleviation we're doing at that spot, whatever we're gonna do, remediation is every word. Whatever remediation we're doing, see if it's working, but it should also show up on the variability monitors as well. So just something to think about in terms of monitoring and the time it takes to do that monitoring. I think that's all I have right now.
Thank you. Member Campbell?
Thank you. Thank you so much for everybody's comments. I agree that this is a Band-Aid, and Phil's solution is to have many, many plants that can take care of the sewage problem to help Tijuana. So there's that could be handled. I for one would be happy if the federal government just built and paid for and maintained all of this, no matter what side of the board it's on, because that's me. But as far as this goes with the filtration, I'm also a nerdy scientist and a family physician. So it's very important, I think, that we have a meeting and looking at that. And I'm really appreciative of all of the work staff's done and the work are hard. We've really gone through it. $250 a unit is what I read, and that's expensive. I have 3 units in my house. I had terrible weather, so I had to get these units. Gosh, I've done so much better since, but they're not that expensive. So I'm wondering, also, they don't clean as much air. I understand from our last meeting, 500 square feet for each unit. That's a lot of space. So if the average home here, which last meeting we were told 1,100 square feet, 2 units would do a pretty good job. You do have to consider the walls, etc., that would get in the way. But in my house, I have 1,800 square feet, three units are much cheaper, and it works really well for our family. But I don't know, these units are much more expensive than mine, which are from Costco. But at any rate, I just wanted to point out that if we put 2 units in each home, that brings the price down to 20 million. It still covers 1,000 square feet. So that's a big help. Maybe if we aim for that, and then we could go up to each room after that, could look into what kind of devices they had it. That's so that I've been purifying there in my house. But I just think it's a wonderful thing as a Band-Aid, and then we got to get to the big picture and really get to work. This administration currently, this is the silver lining in the dark cloud. At least they sent somebody from the property department who took a look and met with Paloma and really was interested in helping us out. And hopefully, if we can work more on that, we can get some more federal help than we've had. So I think that's important too, that we do that. It's important we verify the address. I like the other solutions that you guys have come up with. It scares me to put a list of people's names on the internet, it's scary. So I think it's a good idea if we could verify by those other methods. It takes a lot of personnel. And so we do have to think about them. Everything we're doing is very costly. And I like the idea that delivery from Fresno would be a lot cheaper. That'd be good. So I think there's a lot that we can do. We can keep working on this. Ask some of the philanthropic organizations to help us out. And in the meantime, push the federal and state government and Mexico, which I know we have a good relationship. And I know I can't speak. I haven't met the president of Mexico yet. I was hoping to meet her when we take our trip down there to meet with their government in October. But I really think she cares about this and that we need to fix this. And this would help the people in Tijuana as well. So thank you very much.
Deputy Director Watt, did you want to address the?
Sure, just a couple clarifications on the capacity of the unit and the cost. The unit itself can clean up to 1,700 square feet per hour. As Dr. Seaver-Gonzalez mentioned, you may want more frequent air exchanges than that, but the unit itself is rated at 1,700 square feet. And then the $250 cost includes 2 replacement filters as well, to try to extend the life and the use of those devices that we're giving out. So just want to add some clarification.
Sorry, and we have some other comments here, but I think Dr. Stickler-Granados wanted to add another scientific.
Well, just a quick, that these filters are special, but there's the carbon and the potassium permanganate in them, and so that makes them a little bit different than just a HEPA filter. And so I actually think that the cost getting it down to $250 is pretty amazing. I think they retail for like $600. Something that I had thought about last night was if there's the potential at all that this company could manufacture a smaller unit with the same type of filtration system for smaller versions, because the big one is technically too big for a bed, not too big for a bedroom, but it would really do a great job. In a bedroom, it's overload a little bit. So I'm wondering if there's the potential to have a lower cost filter for bedrooms. I know it adds another element of complications to distribution, but it's just a thought if they had considered manufacturing a smaller unit at less cost.
And we be careful here because, we would potentially need to do another procurement if we wanted to look at an alternative unit, but I do know that there are smaller units available that do specifically treat just, gases as opposed to particulates, right? That's kind of the challenge, is in order to get both. I think it increases the cost, but there are opportunities for maybe smaller scale units that do want to do. That's something we could look at as part of a future solicitation to try to see if we could get something that's more targeted to a bedroom size as opposed to a larger scale unit. I got some information in response to Member Chair Lawson Reamer's question earlier. The manufacturers indicated that the unit itself lasts anywhere from 10 to 15 years. So, they have a warranty. Obviously, that's a little bit shorter than that, 2 years, but just wanted to provide that information as well.
I have member Aguirre and then member Dunnigan.
Thank you for recognizing me a second time. I just want to add something just to help us center again the conversation. I know I have an anecdotal experience I want to share about how miserable just these chronic headaches can make your life. This is a reality that people in the South Bay are living every single day. On Monday, so, guilty. I just get really hot at night in summer. I have a portable AC unit that obviously pulls air out of the window. So I was really hot. I turned it on and I forgot to turn on my filter, which actually has the potassium permanganate and carbon filter. And I woke up with the biggest headache ever, and it lasted me like 3 days. It's finally gone. But the only reason it's gone is because now I actually work in this building, and I'm not spending my entire day every single day. But how many of us are still there working, living, operating every day that haven't even had the ability or the privilege to access one? I just want to share that to keep them in mind, right? So just to bring us back and help us center on this conversation, I would like at this point, hearing everybody's comments, to make a motion to consider the distribution of the remaining 3,200 units. I heard support for the idea of sending a portion to Fresno to expedite that. My proposal is maybe we can expedite delivery to Fresno at 75% 5% of the remaining units and 25% ship them here locally, where we would work with some of these partners that we've already identified for the distribution so that we can overcome that digital divide from those who can't or don't know how to access online. And then when it comes to the proof of residency, continue to require it in person, but use the address that they're listing to ship to have it delivered as a proof of residence. And then to Dr. Granados' point, I mean, I think that we can come back in December and analyze the financial cost to the potential expansion of the program in 2026. But what I would like to propose is that we explore the purchasing of 40,000 units for next year and establish a standard of 4 air purifiers per household. And then cut down the local distribution of that number to 5% to be ordered up front, and then 95% to be shipped to present if and when we identify the resources for that. But I think keeping in mind front and center that this is a public health crisis and that we are going to explore the other sources of revenue so that we can come back and vote on that financial matter in December. We had the approximate estimates, but my motion includes like, okay, now digging into the specifics and bringing that back for consideration in December. So that's my motion.
Do we have a second? Do I need to let Member Duncan speak? First?
No, hold on, Helen.
Oh, go ahead, Molly.
I had a quick clarifying question if I could on the motion. For the standard of 4 air purifier units per household, then are we talking 10,000 individual households receiving 4? I just wanted to clarify what we're analyzing.
Is it better to give 4 per household and only 10,000 households, or would it be better to cover all 40,000 households of each one?
And that's a great question. The issue is that we want to make sure that those in the most the closest area, the affected area, get first and foremost as much protection as possible, because they're being bombarded by all of these pollutants that we may sell and may not sell. So obviously, in the past, the decision was based on funding. That's why we landed in 1 filter per household so that we could reach more because we were limited in our resources. But now we're digging into the need of a family needing more than just one. It's like half of it.
Maybe finding smaller unit, better, smaller.
I'd be open to adding that to the motion, exploring the cost of this, and then maybe some less costlier ones, smaller ones for the bedroom. I mean, all we're doing is bringing back an analysis.
Thank you. Thank you for your patience, Member Duncan.
You sure there's somebody else who wants to speak for a second, third, or fourth, or fifth time to speak? No. Any other questions?
I'm just reading the orders before people raise their hands, and you raise your hand after Member
I'm
here.
glad I raised my hand after she just spoke again, or after this here. I raised my hand like 10 minutes ago. Any event, my comments are that.
Go there.
So you didn't see me raise my hand in the last hour and a half? until
I did,
just
and I
right now.
let you go, but Member.
I did not go.
Did not speak out of turn.
And
And you know what?
Mary
You
Gary
don't-
spoke
you
4 or
don't
5
have to-
times, and then you went back to stop, and you went to others, and you went back to Member Granados, and, I mean, that's just the facts, that seems very strange. I've actually sat through, obviously hundreds of SDAPCD meetings and Metro wastewater JPA meetings, and it's the first time it's ever happened.
Did you
So-
want to make a comment on the agenda?
All right. We'll see what I can say. Thank you. So a few comments I have. One is in regard to funding. I forget who, I think it was Member Gomez mentioned the funding. As we spoke about a little bit earlier this week, I do think there should be some focus on reaching out to our Congress members to help with funding. And I'm talking specifically about funding separate from maybe what Member Campbell was referring to, because I work a significant amount of time on funding for the plants. But funding for the plants and for the maintenance and the expansion of the plants is very, very different than seeking funding from Congress for something like help on the air purifiers. And really to expand it to the level that Supervisor Geary is referring to, we really need a significant amount of money. So as I mentioned, I do think someone needs to take the lead on that, whether it's a staff member, whether it's Supervisor Geary or Gloria or myself or others, that can significantly help advance what you're trying to do. And I know I've spoken here things well. It's just something that we should focus on. Secondly, I want to make sure that everybody understands. I know, and so I won't keep repeating it, like as we've heard from many members, but it is obviously a super significant issue. I don't think any member of this, board would be against getting more air filters out and helping people with the odor. Obviously, it's real. I've been to Saturn Boulevard. You go to that hot spot for 2 hours, you're going to feel days burning. It's insane. So we do need the help. But one of the things I took from when Member Gomez spoke was, if there is a way to get a significant amount of the filters, if they're starting to slow up once we have them to request to the schools, that does seem to be potentially a significant way to distribute a fairly large amount of filters to have them be effective in the community. So I think we should really take a look at how we could potentially make that happen. If we need, 40 filters for a school or something to have an allocation come and get distributed, and we know it would be effective. We know where it's going. In regard to the issue about address verification, I have no issue with that, with them being shipped directly to an address within the area that's. I don't think there needs to be there needs to be address verification beyond that, unless we reach, as you've mentioned, whether or not part of our grant or requirement requires it from the funding source. We have to be mindful, right, that we are in compliance with funding source rules about verification. It would be potentially difficult if we do, events where they're distributed. At an event where it's distributed, I think quality control and financial principle, we do need to ensure there's some verification with who's getting those. I do think whatever you can do on your side to ensure that if one's rejected from somebody in an eligible area, that has an additional level of scrutiny. For instance, as you mentioned, if you ship one to an address, it's an apartment. I mean, we asked about the lifespan of these filters. Those apartments, while there's quite a few people who stay in Imperial Beach in apartments for a long time, many move very quickly. I own an apartment living in Imperial Beach, so it would be a shame if they got rejected and then maybe they didn't have the wherewithal to follow up with it. So we had a way on our side to ensure that they're still eligible potentially to receive one. I think that would be very, very good. But what I'm starting to say earlier about confusion potentially here is, yes, the U.S. has expanded their plant by 10 million gallons a day just recently. Yes, and I don't know if it was mentioned earlier that Mexico's plant went online on April 1st and is still running. It's treating about half of the sewage that goes out down to San Antonio Los Buenos, and there's massive negotiations going on between Administrator Zelda and Maripia and from the Mexican counterpart, and things being looked at like an outfall pipe down there, which would put about 3 miles. And there's a bunch of other things, including Mexico diverting another 10 million gallons per day of the sewage at the end of December. So that stuff's going on, and the Mexico's plants are being built, and they're in negotiations to double it to potentially do the other half. Our plant, the expansion, separate from the 10 million gallon a day additional treatment from the 20 to 30 or 25 to 35, is supposed to, in essence, be doubled, and they're expediting that within 2 years. So, but still, my concern, as Gloria raised, I'm all for the air filter project. I'm all for getting the funding. Every time we spend money, we should take a look if there's something else that's more effective we could be spending on with this issue, I'm saying. And with what would that be? Maybe Mary Geary knows more about it than I do. And I know there's been some discussions and I've had some with the Navy, but what infrastructure on this odor problem could be done? What could be done for it? Whether I know some capital improvements to change the flow there at Saturn, or whether it's other diversion or whatever. But that is something that it could help address this problem. So I'm interested in learning more. Maybe some people here know more about that right now, but that's something that if it takes 2 years to get the rest of this funding, if by that time, maybe we can actually solve the problem. It's not the problem of Tijuana sewage overall from Mexico. It's the problem with what's in that river, the odors. So that's where I think, obviously our focus is here. So, I don't have any issues with the motion, so I'll be support of the motion. Please, that's the chair.
Sorry, it's member Gomez and the name member here.
Two questions, well, actually, one comment and a question. The comment is more about the partnership, I forget what it was called, but that alert that went out that delivered more participation. I was also thinking the school district is constantly communicating, they have a system to communicate with parents. Utilizing that, whatever that system is, right? So
Yes, yeah, it's Peach Jar is the system that's usually used with the schools, and we have worked with schools and school districts to get messaging out through that system as well.
Okay, that's great.
The county's done the same thing through Peach Jar as well.
That's great. The other really that caught my attention is more on why can't we just, we know the properties, right? We can gather the addresses. Yes or no, of like the hot zones for this. Why can't we just do like send filters to each of those homes? And have, why do we need a body to verify? Why can't we just send them? What's preventing us? What requires us having to have a application and all of that?
One of the limitations there, it speaks, some member Duncan brought up, is regarding the funding source. Like through the funds that we're currently using through CARB, we are required to collect an application with minimum information, name, address, things of that nature, as opposed to just proactively sending them out to address.
So if CARB, can we talk to CARB to perhaps if we want to move this quicker?
Potentially, we could raise that to see if there's flexibility there.
That we should explore that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry, before I let you speak, member Aguirre, I'd like the record to know.
I just want to.
Sorry,
For the record, the member Bush joined the meeting.
Sorry, we didn't do that. Member Aguirre.
Thank you. I think that's a great suggestion. We should explore that. I don't see why we can't explore that idea with CARB. Might be able to make an exception given that we are in a state of emergency, at least at the county level. I wanted to just go back to the comment from member Duncan regarding the capital improvement project related to infrastructure improvements in the river and to the hotspot. The county just also, the board just unanimously approved a resolution supporting a call to the State Water Resources Board to allocate the $50 million that were designated through the Prop 4 Climate Resiliency Bond that was passed in 2024 to go to cross-border rivers, including the Tijuana River. So I'm actually going next week before the board to ask them to expedite sending us that $50 million as soon as possible so that we can immediately invest that into the infrastructure fix at the hotspot, which we now have the direct empirical evidence, if that's an accurate statement, that turbulence, that man-made infrastructure is causing all of the toxic gases to be emitted. So I just wanted to.
Madam Clerk, did you want to post up the motion? Oh, you got that there. And I'm sorry, Madam Clerk, did we have a second? I don't remember having a second.
Second, and I just wanted to confirm that we were including the exploring solid air purifying units for batteries to the motion. And exploring.
Removing the application process.
Removing the application process.
Yes, member.
Did we discuss possibility of like vouchers as well? electricity, and then also sort of what happened in the, Dominguez Channel. If there is, another spike like we had last year, are we ready for that, to have those on hand, hotel vouchers? I don't know if that's the place to bring this up right now, but I feel like maybe if we're just talking about air filters, and it's just stipulate vouchers for the electricity. But I just wanted to bring that up. Okay, so just vouchers for the electricity for the filters.
APCO, Paula, did you want to make a comment?
What I was gonna say is, we could bring back as part of that December plan, some analysis of how other jurisdictions have addressed large scale events of this nature, such as in Dominguez Channel, where it was a combination of, filters, hotel vouchers, meal vouchers, transportation, that was coordinated by the County of Los Angeles.
Madam Clerk, do we need to read through this motion again, please?
If there were no further comments, so the motion that's currently on the floor is of the 3,200 units left to be distributed as part of the original AIRE program, authorized 25%, 800 units for local distribution and 75%, 2,400 units for direct shipping from Fresno. Number 2, eliminate the proof of residency requirement for online applications and continue proof of residency policy for in-person applications. Number 3, when APCD returns to the board on December 11th, 2025, based off programmatic and feasibility assessments on the following parameters for an ongoing AIRE program in calendar year 2026. A, 40,000 units to be purchased and distributed. B, establish a standard of 4 air purifier units per household. C, 95% of units assigned to a direct shipping distribution model from Fresno. D, 5% of units assigned to a local distribution model. This will actually be 4. Explore smaller air purifier units from 4 bedrooms. And 5, explore removing the application process with CARB.
Member Duncan?
Thank you. And I have a question, and whether or not I have a comment after that is, are we allowed now under the current program to distribute them to schools or not? I'm just following up on my earlier comment.
Yes, and as I mentioned in our presentation, we are having conversations with schools that have applied for the program to get those in place.
But we have not distributed any.
Correct.
And I guess my question is whether it's worth any friendly amendments to the motion to add that, which was my concept, and coming out, member Gomez's comments, that if we do have units on the and we don't have requests for them, that we could go ahead and distribute those to the school. But I guess we have a request. I mean, they're not going online and filling it out, right?
They've already submitted applications and requested specific filter types that work for their facilities,
Okay.
which may or may not be the same ones that we're planning as part of this program.
Okay. I guess even if one in an apartment is not different than one in a classroom, to me, I would just like to see them in the classroom. So if it's allowed under the program, I'll leave the motion as it is. So I just thank you for clarifying that.
To the chair, I share your concern to regarding wanting to protect the children that are the most vulnerable. We know physically their bodies are very vulnerable to these gases when they're developing. But I will add that we have been in communication with some of the superintendents of the schools in the area, partnering with them for distribution, local distribution, the local distribution model that we've been discussing. And through this alert system, the school one that was just mentioned as well. So I think that would be more effective instead of just, because one thing they mentioned they had concerns with is not every school has the ability to store them all at the same time. If we were to just, I guess, to use the word blitz them with sending them all the units, they may have challenges with storage in that particular unit.
I just look at it like, so if they're gonna help us with storage, at the same time they're helping us with storage, we have the kids in the classrooms without filters, and then we're distributing them out to the community. It's just, I think we're in agreement. We want to get it done. I just think that should be an additional part of the conversation with them. specifically whether or not these would work. I mean, they may have had a research thing that says, hey, we put these giant types of filters and we did this, that's how we're gonna solve it. But in the meantime, we do put filters in classrooms.
I'd be happy to add to the motion that we explore the types of HEPA filters, HEPA filters, and any other systems that these affected schools have currently, so that if they fall short or providing clean air for their kids, then we expedite them. Yes.
So I think the program authority that we've been given so far is related to classroom air purifiers, not the full HEPA system for the schools. And so I think we would need, I don't know if we have any potential Brown Act issues there, because again, it's beyond the scope of what.
Sorry, then we'll keep it as is, but we will continue this conversation.
Or maybe we just, either add to the motion or just add to what the agency is doing, is that even if they have applications in for certain types of filters that, you know, we're not discussing today and aren't part of the current program, we've inquired whether or not in the interim, they would be able to use the filters that we are on. Be able to.
Go ahead.
Assuming that those aren't, that there's not the demand for those on the residential side, is that what I'm interpreting?
So again, if I could try and clarify, I apologize. So we have current applications in that we're in a process of working through from the school districts, 2 school districts in the area, where they have told us what filters they need to be able to protect their students. And these are classroom air filters. We're anticipating that we're going to be able to enter into contracts relatively soon through a voucher process that will allow them to get those. Beyond that, if the last meeting in August, what we approved was being able to use any excess funds that we might have beyond the 10,000 air purifiers that have already been kind of appropriated for the residential program to be able to use these for the remaining schools. And so we would be able to approach them and say, okay, now, you know, talk to us about what you wanted. Each school area is going to be different, so they might want different purifiers to apply in different situations, such as a classroom or such as a gym or a cafeteria or that sort of.
Right.
So I think we have the flexibility to do what you're asking.
I appreciate that. I'm not requesting a motion change. I would just appreciate if we could have an ongoing update when on this issue. Thank
you for your patience, Member Lawson Ringer.
Yeah, I was just gonna note, I think we all strongly support the work in schools. I think it would be maybe clarifying for all of our members the next meeting to do an overall report back of the work that we are already doing and any gaps, so that we could focus on those gaps. If there's any gaps, I think that would be helpful. Also, just want to note, for the purposes of this conversation, I think we all know that we have a huge funding challenge on all of this. The schools have had access to significantly additional better resources than we have, right? They can run bond measures, and bond measures can only pay for infrastructure, and they can pay for their air filters. These households have no recourse. So I just wanted to note sort of a significant challenge in funding that we have that schools are in sort of better positions to meet. So wanted to keep these as separate threads. Thank you. And I am very supportive of this motion.
Any other comments? Okay, Madam Clerk, can we put this motion to a vote?
Yes. So there's a motion on the floor by Member Aguirre, second by Member Lawson Reamer. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? With Member Gloria absent, that motion passes with those 4 members who are present voting aye.
Thank you. That adjourns our meeting for today. Our next SDAPCD governing board meeting will be held on October 9th at 2 p.m. Thank you, everyone.